Hey guys, I'm really excited to make this video because GWENDOLYN 3, stage 13 is one of the hardest stages in the game. Not a lot of flexibility, and most people are clearing this stage with GWENDOLYN, right? GWENDOLYN is incredibly important. But GWENDOLYN has not been run since the first time ever, which was on the first Christmas of the game. It has been 2 years since she's come out, pretty much. And not everyone has her. But the cool thing is, there are actually no GWENDOLYN teams popping up, and I want to share with you guys 2 of them. Number 1 is going to be the one that I just completed right here, which was created by FVAN. Shout out FVAN, at least he was the first person I saw to do it. And this team is crazy, super smart, and it actually doesn't use GRETCHEN either. The only thing is you need Rivenhold and his exclusive artifact. Now, this team is insane. Once again, I'm going to go over it very shortly for you guys. But of course, there's also this Carnelian team, which I will also be showing. I don't know who originally used this, but I do know that this is, in fact, a team you could run as well. I'm going to be showing off both of these for a no GWENDOLYN queer. And I tried not to make the gear too overpowered, but you do need certain awakenings, and you do need some solid gear for this. You're missing some of the most important units for this, which is GRETCHEN and GWENDOLYN. So obviously you're going to need some solid gear. Anyways, the key for this is actually going to be Rivenhold. There is no replacement for Rivenhold. The whole idea is he gives you inspiration, which increases damage. And then he also provides the shield on his ultimate, which keeps you alive and keeps you from building up the debuffs from the stage. Basically, the boss does an AoE, keeps you alive, right? Rivenhold's very important for that. Not only that, his movement will actually be important, and he's going to also provide some healing. But the reason why he wasn't used until recently is he did not heal enough to actually function, so he was not good enough. But the changing of the placements that happened, which I'll show in a moment, ended up making this actually possible because we actually put Airless at the top side. Anyways, we have the Frosthorn staff here, which is the exclusive. This is key for giving him 30% rage after triggering the ultimate. It's like this was made for this stage. It allows his rotation to be fast enough where he can actually get his ult up for every boss's AoE. If you do not have this, you cannot do this. So he's the most important hero here to have that stuff for. Now, apart from that, you need an A5 Dracula and you need an A5 Kagiri. If you have an A3 Kagiri and you have other stuff, you can check out the video I just uploaded with an A3 Kagiri. For the most part, we need Dracula to be built very well. So here I have no variant weapon or variant bangle. If you have Unstoppable Force or Aggression or anything, build Dracula the best, okay? He needs the best gear possible. Here I have Hell's Lament, and I have a Chaotic Ring. You do not need this. You can get enough damage without it, but just keep in mind that you want your Dracula built as well as possible with his exclusive artifact. Let me get to Kagiri. Kagiri is built in some HP, as you can see, and he actually has the Unstoppable Force that this account has. I don't think it actually ended up making a big difference. You can put it on Neja, you can put it on Dracula, you can put it on Kagiri. I just recommend putting it on one of your top units, Kagiri or Dracula, just for damage. Kagiri also needs to be A5, and we're using his exclusive artifact there as well. Now, beyond that, none of the awakenings really matter too much, but you obviously want a little bit more damage from something like Neja. I do think you can do this with A0 Neja, but regardless, we're doing Cataclysm here, as well as his exclusive artifact. And then we have a lot of units for the bottom to kind of deal a lot of damage, because we're not using GRETCHEN, we need multi-hits. And we have Talon and not Van Helsing, what am I talking about? Freaking Vlad Dracula. Anyways, here we have Talon. Talon is built in Infernal Roar. She's very tanky, naturally, and we're going to be placing her on the ground, which will give her 4 block. So she's essentially a souped up tanky tank, essentially, which is the whole point. We need that block, we need that damage, and we need that survivability really bad. Here we have her exclusive artifact there as well. And then we actually have Vlad Dracula, who is a free unit everyone should have. The event just passed. And you could replace him with Erling Shen if you would like. Erling Shen might actually be better because Erling Shen has multi-hits and he actually benefits from attack. But I'm going to be using Vlad Dracula, who also works and is actually tankier because he scales off of HP, so you want to build him in HP. And he also does self-healing, which keeps him alive a little bit better, which is really nice. Here we have HP bonus mains, and we have just as much crit damage and speed as we could get. That's how you want to build him, as well as his exclusive, which gives him an extra block. Then, going into the rest of the gear, we have GWENDOLYN. GWENDOLYN is very important. GWENDOLYN, just to preface, is solo healing the bottom. We need GWENDOLYN built very well. So here we have her built as a healer. We have a lot of attack speed, HP, and healing effect are the main things. Here we have HP main with attack speed. We have HP main with attack speed and some healing effect. And we have attack speed with some HP, right? This is how you want to build her, as well as her exclusive if you have it. It is not required, but it increases her healing, and it's really important. Most likely someone will die, and you'll have to restart, you'll have to change your timings, you'll have to do something to try to keep the people on the bottom alive. Biggest stress point in this run, apart from the damage of your Dracula Kagiri, is just GWENDOLYN keeping people alive. The damage on the bottom is not going to be the issue, generally. Now, we also have Bashing here. You do not need as much block as this gives as well, in my opinion. You could run Watchguard's Unity if you are not having issues with leaks. If you are, I would run Bashing, but I do recommend Watchguard's Unity instead, personally. I do think it's better for healing, but that's what I use in the run, is I use Bashing. Then we go to Rivenhald. Rivenhald needs as much attack as you can. I went for a little bit of speed, just to kind of increase the healing for Kagiri, as well as getting rage back, which the speed helps with, to end up getting the next ultimate. But basically you just want as much attack as possible, purely so that the shields are bigger. You need big shields, you need increased damage to kill the clones, very important there as well. And then we also have the exclusive once again. And then Airless, I actually built with a decent amount of HP. She was starting to die, and then I just built her with as much healing output as I could. Attack, speed, and healing effect, as well as North's Glory is the best one. You're going to have to restart to have Kagiri live at the top. If he does not live until the very end, where he can die if he wants, you're going to lose. So keep that in mind. Gon, you could build however the hell you want. He didn't matter. And then Leia, I had Wings of Grace, which didn't end up mattering, but I had it anyways, and Tumultuous Horn just for an instant ult as a safety net. And with that, that's the gear. Let's get into the run. So as we get into the run, we need to place a lot of stuff at the beginning. Now, the way I'm going to place them is actually very important, and it's mostly because we do not have Airless down yet. So now we have Neja, we give Wings of Grace with GWENDOLYN, and we do Talon facing up. This is because we need Talon to cover what Neja's blocking as well for later in the fight. Then we have Rivenhald here, and we need Rivenhald to block the first AoE from the boss. This is because Airless is not on the field yet, so we cannot get 2 GWENDOLYN ults up in the time that we need. So we need Rivenhald to provide one of those shields for the bottom. Now I do Leia for the extra damage increase and some rage or whatever on the bottom, just as a little bit of help. I originally did it for for freaking Dracula, but I realized he doesn't benefit from attack, so it was useless. Either way, at the top, we make sure we place Dracula down first, so that he does not get targeted by the boss's projectiles. It targets the last 2 people placed. That's going to be Kagiri and Airless, okay? Then, because Rivenhald is a tactician, we can move them. Now, you may notice that the ults are kind of just happening. That is because I have auto ult up for the bottom units, the bottom DPS. Also, on the top, I end up actually waiting a very long time with Rivenhald. This is because with Dracula, what I actually had to do with Count Dracula is I had to wait until the AoE was actually just about to hit him when he had the shield before I ulted with him. If he loses any HP before he gets hit by the AoE, even with the shield, he would always die. So I always had to wait a little bit. Also, make sure that you're clicking Kagiri ult whenever the mobs have a shield on, and you'll be able to clear it. And then on the bottom, I just kind of let it do its own thing. Now, I did mention earlier that the bottom was actually a big stress point for me, and for a lot of people, as far as I know. And that is just because it can be very difficult to keep people alive with just GWENDOLYN. So your Draylen build has to be really good, your units have to be tanky, and you need to do enough damage. Now, obviously it's a little RNG, yada yada yada. Ults will help, but you're going to notice that the bottom is going to start to struggle pretty soon. Here though, we're chilling. I mean, there's a lot of big units. We haven't killed the ones that are currently on our damage dealers, and there's more coming in a second, but hopefully we can clear them with enough damage or just straight up outlast them is the general goal at least. Now on the top, we're about to be hit by an AoE, so I'm gonna wait a little extra time on Rivenhold. A little bit of an early Draylen ult there, but you know, if it works, it works. And then I make sure that I click Kagiri ult on the AoE just so I can get his ult out early. And then as soon as Dracula is about to get hit, Count Dracula, I end up clicking his ult as well. We just want his ult to go out before he takes self-damage, right? So that's what I did there. Now, we actually struggled to kill this thing at the top right, but luckily Kagiri did a passive and we cleared it completely fine. Now we get to the main issue with the top. So I did like 3 runs before I ended up getting it to work. And the main thing that would cause me to lose is this purple guy would kill the Kagiri. You need to make sure you time stuff perfectly. You need to make sure that Kagiri lives. And Airless will actually save Kagiri, which is amazing. And that's very helpful. But this guy on the top is the main threat. He does a lot of damage and he scales very fast. But he's also easier to kill. So you just have to make sure that your Kagiri does not die here. Hopefully with Airless and everything, you should be okay with, you know, the shields from her artifact. You may need to get a little lucky. But either way, as long as you can survive that, you'll be completely fine. Now we just need to try to kill this pink guy. You're gonna need to kind of wait for Dracula ult to be back up because it won't be back immediately. But I do recommend just clicking it now. And at this point in the run, we actually do not need any more shields for anything specific. So we're just gonna use it to keep us alive. So you may notice on the bottom, we're struggling really hard to survive. So around this point, if you think you're gonna die, just click Draylen ult. Also at the top, I made sure to Kagiri ult in order to strip the shield off of the next purple guy. This is where it can kind of vary. On the bottom, if you survive, you're fine, you'll clear it. But there's a chance that your Neja or your Dracula or your Talon or something will die. And there's also the chance that your Kagiri will die on the top. All you have to do is try to decide which side is struggling the most and then place your Gon on that side, basically. On the bottom, I had people start to die, so I placed Gon, and then someone else died, so then I placed Leia to actually heal. And this ended up being incredibly clutch, and I was able to clear the stage because I put a stop to the issues, as well as the fact that I was able to keep Kagiri alive on the top long enough to where I was able to kill the Volca clone. So it's just a lot of things at the end. It could be a little tense, but as long as you can get them down, get lucky, you'll be able to do it. And now I just kind of stalled out long enough for me to get my other units back, and then I just placed them there to try to kill these things, and bam, I did. And that is stage 13 with no GWENDOLYN and no Gretchen, which in my opinion is insane that this is possible. Looking at the damage numbers in a moment, basically you get the highest damage dealers on the bottom. Dracula did like almost no damage, but Talon and Neja did enough, and then on the top, Kagiri and Dracula also did enough.
Now we get to the Carnelian team. The Carnelian team is a little bit safer if you can get it to work, but it does need a Gretchen. As you can see, we got rid of Talon and Vlad Dracula, and we put in Carnelian and Gretchen. Basically, you have less damage dealers on the bottom. You can't do 2, right, for the price of 1. So the only one that can fill in the spot of Erlang / Dracula and Talon is Gretchen. Because Gretchen dispels, Gretchen gets a lot of the shield, like all the shields just disappear immediately. She also gives rage, crit damage, and is just all around really, really good here. You could technically do Erlang Shen as well.
where you put him on the bottom, you put an Asia and a Lunacy Visor, but I'm going to use Gretchen instead, of course. And then we have Carnelian here to put out orbs, because we just saw in the previous run that a big struggle was healing the bottom and healing the top. By having Carnelian, we could do Airless on the bottom to help with healing, and then we can also do a little bit of help at the top. Now, Gretchen is in an Infernal Ring as well as a Shattered Hilt, is what I would do. Now we get to the run, and this is a Power of Dominance run. I was kind of struggling to get this team to work, so a friend of mine was very gracious to send me his auto, and the general strategy is pretty clear. So as you can see here, he actually waits extra long. I don't know why he waits so long, but basically he just places his Nejat, he places his not Gwendolyn, he places his Gretchen, and then he places down Leia for some Wings of Grace, as well as Airless. Now he's going to just try to clear things as best as possible. Now I would recommend putting Gretchen in front of Nejat personally, but regardless, we can look at the top now, and you'll see that Dracula is very particular. If he does not have an orb, he will die unless you have a shield up and he is not low HP during the AoE, basically. But regardless, at the top, you can see that Carnelian is putting down orbs. Carnelian's really good because a lot of the stress points of this run is the fact that your Kigiri will die. Carnelian just says, what if Kigiri didn't die? And that's the entire thing. So if you're struggling to live, you can Carnelian ult to put another orb on as long as Kigiri is under half HP. You know, if this purple guy comes in and he's shredding Kigiri still won't die because of the unyielding, right? So that's a really big stress point on this type of run. And as you can see, he's managing quite well. And then you can see on the bottom that he actually did something really smart. He swapped out Draylen for Gone after the AoEs, and he cleared it. So I know I didn't really explain the run too well. I didn't want to focus solely on this one. I wanted to focus more on the other run, right? Because I think it's a little bit more interesting. But if you have the units and you want to use a team like this, this one works too. And with that, that is Gear Dungeon 3. And this will probably be the last video I make for a little while. As you can see, lots of people doing it. And the final one I wanted to do was no Gwendolyn, no Gretchen, which is what I did. So if you guys come up with like any crazy clears that you want me to cover, maybe I'll make another video. But for now, I'm going to move on to other things. This stage is hard as hell. The requirements on the gear and everything are high. If you're doing a lower stage, it's quite a bit lower. But I do want to just try to share some strategies to make it easier. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see you all in the next one, and Destined signing out.